I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media. I have with me Blake Roberts. He's been in once before, I think. We talked about something else. But you reached out and you asked about media, what's going on with media. I think I've explained many times what's going on with Bill C-18 and how it affects independent media outlets. And
I
basically,
follow it.
basically crushing independent media outlets. Close to 100 have closed here in Canada since the introduction of Bill C-18. In June, it'll be 2 years since that bill's been introduced. We've reached out to many of the elected officials to see if we can get an end to it. No response from the Liberal camp, although we did get a response from Stephen Fuhr here locally saying that it should be repealed. All the candidates in the local riding here said it should be repealed, but Pierre Poilievre in the Conservative platform has said it in his platform that he will repeal Bill C-18 and offer some funding support for local independent media. Also the defunding of the English-speaking CBC, not the closing down of CBC, but the defunding.
What people say all the time. I see friends say he wants to shut down CBC.
No, it's the defunding of the English-speaking, the French portion of it. He would continue to fund. So that's the actual facts that are in the program that they lay down. Peter Menzies wrote a piece. I think it was yesterday or today. Vote wisely, Canada. The fate of the free press depends on the outcome of this election. And Peter Menzies was a former VP of the CRTC, and he has lots of accolades. You can go find his. He is also a senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. His piece was on election, that on Monday night, I can read you the direct quote here. When it's all said and done, the future of a free and independent press and the public's trust in it is on the line next Monday. It will live or it will die. And Holly Dones of Blacklock has said something similar. It says, if the media is not freed for government intervention and funding, it will actually become an arm of the government. So that's all we'll have left in Canada is a federally funded, basically a one-party funded media outlets, and the rest will, be left to die.
So can I go off a little bit?
You go ahead.
I want to speak to my friends because my friends know me on Facebook that I'm pretty vocal. I've been vocal this whole election period. So to my friends, anybody else that knows me if you're not my friend, Bill C-18 that Jim speaks about, that is the reason why you can't share stories on Facebook.
Of any news outlet.
Of any news outlet, not
including
just
CBC.
out, including CBC. You used to be able to see something you liked and share it. And Justin Trudeau, he told us all that that's to help the media because Facebook was the big bad guy capitalizing on media stories. No, what Facebook was doing was giving you a tool to share stuff. Facebook could care less if you shared stuff. We're already on Facebook, but this was the ability to share information. The reason people like Kelowna Now and every other small independent benefit from that was their reach grew. Obviously,
it's a symbiotic relationship for us because it was like us, a suckerfish on a shark. They had tons of traffic. We willingly, like no different than CBC or CTV, we willingly put our content on this. Facebook didn't steal anything. We willingly put our content on Facebook and Instagram in exchange for the traffic that we got from it, and then we sold that traffic to our advertisers.
So the advertisers, because they were getting Facebook traction, yes, I want to advertise with Kelowna Now and all these other independents. I've had friends compare this to Apple News, where Apple News did pay the tax. Difference with Apple News is they charged a subscription. I read Apple News, I pay $45 a month for it.
Yep.
So it's completely
But
different.
They take the content though.
They take the content, right?
Facebook doesn't steal any content.
No. Facebook actually could care less. Fine, but we're not paying it. We're not going to pay you to use something for free.
The biggest problem in all this is when Justin Trudeau was here in the Okanagan, we got to ask the question, well, will you repeal Bill C-18? And he said, absolutely not. We will not repeal Bill C-18 because we're fighting basically the evil empire, I paraphrase there, fighting the evil empire, Meta, and we will never back down. And turns out here, just before December and before this election was called, the Liberal government, the Privy Council, started advertising on Facebook because they said they recognize how important Facebook is to the Canadians because that's where they get their news. So then since then, the Liberal Party, the candidates have been spending millions of dollars, including the government, spending millions of dollars on Meta, promoting their information because they say they can't get news on there because of Bill C-18. But we still can't put our news on that platform. So news outlets across Canada, and that includes CBC and CTV, have lost half their traffic because Canadians go to social media to get their news. The only difference is we don't get any funding from the government, where many of these other legacy outlets are getting government to compensate them for that loss of traffic.
So CBC is paying to advertise in Meta. The only thing is we're CBC because it's government funded. So we're paying to support them and not you guys. So to my friends, and you and I had this conversation, Jim, I see the value in CBC. I think there's two camps here. Those that want the CBC above all else, they get $1.4 billion from the federal government. The outgoing heritage minister actually wanted to double that. I'm of the belief system. I believe in the CBC. I'm kind of in the middle camp, but cut its budget drastically and work with local independents like these guys. And I'm not giving, I barely know this man. I've had what, 5 conversations with you. I just see the value of local media, and I like getting different opinions. I've got friends, and one I won't mention who this person is. She's a Canadian-American local that lives in Kelowna who's a big fan of the CBC. As I'm about to tell her when I walk out of here, the problem with just having CBC is, yes, that will just become a voice of the government. Think about that, folks. That's a scary thought, because when you hear about a voice of the government, that sounds kind of like China and Russia to me. To me, you need the other side of the equation.
Well, in a healthy democracy, you would have many voices, because democracy is supposed to be messy. That's how we get better, right? That's the difference in a democracy. In a democracy, you listen to the people you don't like as well as the people you do like. It's not a democracy if you only allow the voices that you agree with. That's not democracy.
And that's right. What's happening kind of with CBC right now, again, that I see some value in, because you said outside, the writers and everybody else at CBC has a vested interest in getting the Liberals elected, because Pierre Poilievre has said he'll defund them. He didn't say he'll shut them down. He said he'll defund them. I think what will happen is, if he gets elected, even the English portion, he'll just cut it back a bit. I don't actually think he'll defund. But the CBC is trying to get him elected. I just listened this morning, Poilievre's costing came out for his platform. And I believe the reporter's name was Janice McDonald. She didn't give a reporter's take on things, explaining things. She sounded like a Liberal campaign manager. And I heard her a few days earlier give the same breakdown of Carney's, and it was like she was a Liberal campaign manager. It was completely
So to be fair to the CBC, the government has put media in this predicament. It has actually put media into this predicament, because for independent media outlets like ourselves, we lose if the Liberals get elected, because they likely won't repeal Bill C-18. They're actually adding another bill, the Online Harms Act, and that. So it'll be less and less freedom for, like Peter Menzies said, there'll be less and less freedom for independent outlets and more power to a federally funded media outlet. But on the other side of that, for the Conservatives to win, it hurts many people that are really good journalists for the CBC. And so they're in this predicament where, that neither one of us should be in. That's the truth of the matter. The government should not be deciding who is a journalist. And the court said that. When CBC lost its mind about Rebel News, and I don't like Rebel News. I think they're not the greatest. But I mean, for the CBC to go out and paint all independent journalism as garbage based on their anger towards Rebel News is unfair as well. So there has to be one. The court says the government doesn't get to decide who's a journalist, and the CBC sure doesn't get to decide who's a journalist. That's not up to them. But this government and the CBC seem to be really interested in deciding who is a journalist and who isn't, and who funds, and selectively funding some and selectively defunding and deplatforming others. That's not a free democracy.
Which is why my naive little concept just came to my little brain. last week, and I'd mentioned this to you.
Yeah.
Again, $1.4 billion for the CBC.
Yeah.
And some can argue whether that's enough or not enough. I would suggest, like anything else, huge government waste there. You can
I get what
only
you're trying to
imagine
do. You're trying to play the middle of the road in that.
playing
but,
middle
yeah.
of the road, right?
But you and I don't get to make those decisions. The decisions are made by the government, and CBC has a big role in this to play too, because they can self-govern themselves, and that's what's missing too. They need to self-govern as well because of that power they have, because they're using our tax dollars, and they should be representing the voice of Canada, not the voice of the Liberal Party. They should see that those tax dollars that they're getting are not Liberal tax dollars. They're Canadian taxpayer tax dollars, and they should listen
But
to
they
the
see it
voice
as
of the
liberal
people.
tax dollars,
Right, because they
one
control the
party-
purse. They
well,
control the
because
purse.
One party has said
I get
we
it.
value,
Yeah.
and the other party said.
But it shouldn't be like that.
Right.
So that if the CBC is to stay, I think they need to be put outside of government reach. They need to be put off to the side and said, this is the CBC and how it runs. But it isn't subjected to parties. And maybe they have to have a vote for all parties to agree with what the CBC gets. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all parties decide what the CBC
So it can be
gets.
government funded.
Government funded, but
agree,
not
but
one
not-
party
but
funded,
not
not
one
party
party
funded. It has to be if it's a public broadcaster, then act in the interest of the public, not act in the interest of a party.
So then, my idea of, we've got the mothership of the CBC. Every city and town, it seems, has a local affiliate CBC. Do away with them. because of
Major centers,
major
not every.
centers.
Yeah,
Well, we're a major center.
yeah, but I'm
Like,
just saying, not every
how
town.
many- but there's
Merrick
gotta
one.
be
Yeah,
20 of them, 25 of them,
I have no idea.
I'm guessing.
A
So
lot,
let's say
a
there's
lot more than
25
that
of them.
probably.
How much does a local CBC here cost? Do away with the local and set up satellite agreements with people like Kelowna Now and maybe one or two independents in each city.
Oh.
One leaning a little bit to the right, one leaning a little bit to the left, so you get different opinions.
There shouldn't, at the end of the day, we've gone down this road of left and right too, right? It should be what's good for Canada, not left and right and all this stuff
No,
too. And
valid, yeah.
we politicize so much, but the media should be outside of political influence. That's really what it should be. And the CBC would even say that themselves if they thought about it. They should be outside of political influence. And they may think that they are, but they are definitely not. And they should just watch themselves and they'll see that they're not. Like Rosemary Barton the other night when she was losing her mind over Rebel News there, accusing them of misinformation at the same time spreading misinformation that CBC later apologized for.
I have a love-hate relationship with Rosemary Barton. Sometimes I appreciate her, other times, yeah.
I mean, there's good journalists that work at CBC. There's no denying that. But
I would love to hear the At Issue crew, Chantel, and the other gal and the other guy. The names escape me now, because they have a slight. Well, they've got. It seems like there's one liberal, one NDP, and one kind of conservative. She's not as much, but they at least give the devil his due. And I'd like to hear. I'd honestly, seriously, love to hear them debating what you're saying right now, because I think
they don't want to talk about the issue, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, here's Peter Menzies. This is a really big article that every outlet across Canada should be talking about. I guarantee it won't get much play.
Share that with me.
Sure. I guarantee it won't get much play.
Again, to my friends, okay, I'm going to post this, and just think about this, even the ones that value CBC with Bill C-18, imagine if CBC was the only news you heard. Think about the danger of that and how uninteresting that would be, but really think about that, folks. Can I say one more thing?
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry, it's just, so many of us are the belief system that if an industry can't survive on its own, well, it shouldn't exist. And to a large degree, I agree with that. I think media is different, and I do follow it. I'm involved in some volunteer. People know me. I'm involved with the Okanagan Sun for years. Sports organizations like that over the years are hurting because we've lost so much media. We need media. This is not an industry that, if it can't survive on its own, so be it. They do need some help, but even more so, the government took away. They don't just not fund people like Kelowna Now. Kelowna Now had
They put their knee in our throat.
They put their knee on your throat. You
Yeah,
had
we had our
a
model
vehicle,
that worked.
a model
That worked.
that cost the public nothing.
Yep.
And the government said, you cannot use that. Think about that.
They
That's
took
what
that
the
away.
liberal government
We don't
did.
want government funding.
So,
A free and independent media should not want government funding. It should not want government funding. We just want back what we earned serving this community for over a decade. That's it. That's all we want is what we earned. Like we earned that as Facebook audience. They took it away with no compensation, and they selectively fund certain outlets and don't do it. And here's the thing that actually is the rub of the whole thing. Kelowna now has the most experienced news crew in Kelowna. We have Kent Mulgat, who ran the CTV bureau here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He ran the desk
you
here.
got legitimate.
Steve McNall, who was the business editor for the Daily Courier for, what, I don't know, 30 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Josh is, all the other ones are all trained at BCIT or wherever. Josh has been doing this for close to 10 years now. Ian worked at the Daily Mail, and one of the most, probably if you stack up his credentials for his training, probably the most trained journalist in this area. And then, we have, like everybody else, I don't want to go through all their names, has the school, the training and all that. And yet the government says we are not qualified journalism under their funding. They selectively choose outlets that they believe further their messaging as opposed
So
to...
not only do they not fund you,
Yeah.
you can't use Facebook.
Right. And
So
we've
it's a double
fought
whammy.
with Facebook too and said, like, they say we're not, so give us back our Facebook. And they use the same criterion and said, absolutely not, you are a news outlet.
How much longer we got? Because I'm going to finish with something.
You go ahead. I'm
We're
done.
done?
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I've said this a million times, right? It's just like talking to the wall.
Here's a challenge. Okay, if Pierre wins, problem solved. If Carney wins, you got an issue. You said that Stephen Fuhr gave you a letter of support.
He did.
Okay, Stephen Fuhr, and I'm supporting the Conservatives, but I've posted that I have lots of respect for Stephen Fuhr. Mr. Fuhr, I'm talking to you. Put your money where your mouth is. One of the things that drives us all nuts about the House of Commons is MPs toe the party line. You all walk in
Well, Stephen
lockstep
Fuhr
with
has, to be fair, Stephen Fuhr has come out, when we did a debate, he has come out and said that he thinks Bill C-18 should be repealed.
saying he thinks it
Yeah.
and doing things
Yeah.
are something else. Mr. Fuhr, speak up in the House of Commons. You represent this community if you get elected. Speak up for local media in your city. Speak up in the House of Commons, contrary to what Mark Carney, your leader, may think. Speak out against Bill C-18. Speak up for local media in your city. There's the
I
challenge.
can tell you this right now. There's 3 more outlets about to fail here on May 1 here in the Lower Mainland. They're Glacier outlets. They're going to close May 1, like completely. And what Peter Menzies said here is very true, that independent press will die on Monday if the vote goes a different way than Conservatives, because there is not a lot of hope for free and independent media. And that's just the fact. I mean, it's not just us saying it. Holly Dona Blacklock's independent journalist has said it. Peter Menzies has said it. Like so many people have said, academics have said it, that this is the government should not be interfering in media. The government should not be deciding who is media. CBC lost its mind the other night there saying who is in media. The judge says that Rebel News had the right to be there because the government doesn't get to decide who is and who is not a journalist. And surely CBC doesn't get to decide who is and who is not a journalist. They get to decide who they want to hire, right? And they can say that Rebel News is garbage, sure, but they shouldn't say that they're not journalists because that's not their right to say.
The only thing that, and I almost don't want to talk about Rebel News because that goes down that rabbit
Yeah.
hole, but aren't they, they're registered as a party as well, and didn't
I don't know
didn't
what they
have more
are. I mean, like
reporters
I
than
said,
they're
I
supposed
just
to?
think they're.
Put Rebel
Yeah,
News as let's just.
I'm no
local,
fan. I'm no
legitimate-
fan.
Yeah, and neither am I.
Yeah.
The odd pieces, that's provocative.
I don't watch any of their stuff, so there you go.
But again, sorry.
They're a fundraising corporation. Like they get into controversy, and then they use it to fundraise, and then they sue everybody. I don't know, whatever. But still, even as shitty that is, they
You can't say
still
shitty on the internet, can you?
Why? You haven't heard that word before? or
You
what?
got a business on Monday. You can say whatever that's you
Yeah,
want.
there you go.
But that's not funny. But seriously, so hey, whoever gets elected on Monday, whether it's if the Liberals get on Monday, it's not too late to fix this. Governments, and you'll agree with this, if a government has a policy, they're gonna not follow through with half of what they said. Liberals follow through with something.
You know how many
didn't
times
say
we've
you
said
were
letters?
gonna
You know how many letters we've sent?
Yeah, now I'm saying it.
There you go.
You know who I think I am?
Where were you before?
Jeez,
I guess.
you know?
Where were you before? Anyway, thank
so,
you.
Seriously,
Thank you for
challenge
coming
to see
in.
if we
There you
can
go.
speak
And
up
if you've got a
locally.
rant you want to talk about too, Now Me will give you a platform
This
to
wasn't a
do your
rant.
little rant or whatever
wasn't a
your
rant.
fix or whatever you got your fix. I mean, we welcome that though. I mean, it's great. You've shared your thoughts. You articulated it well. You've been following the issue more than most. So thank you for that. Because not a lot of people care because it doesn't bother them.
Well, because I do know because of my volunteer things, I know what losing media in this city over the last few years has done. Back in the day, the Daily Courier, I know the coverage we used to get.
Yeah.
They virtually don't exist.
Well, I can tell you right now, like Kamloops this week closed down. They cited Bill C-18 in their final letter. Bell Media laid off 4,800 employees. They cited Bill C-18 in that. Close to 100 outlets have failed since the introduction of Bill C-18. It's almost 2 years
You
now.
mentioned Kamloops this week. Again, my volunteer life through sports. I used to see them. They were
Go read their
such a
last press
benefit.
release. Go read their last message
I did.
before they closed their
Yeah.
door. There you go.
They were huge for
Yeah.
the local community sports and everything. Local sports lost something really valuable in Kamloops. It was horrible.
So if that's all you want in Canada is CBC, then hey.
So again,
There you go.
regardless of who gets elected on Monday, speak up. Stephen Fears, please speak up.
All right. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.